Welcome back to Sean Talk Security. It's been a long time since I've recorded anything here, and I'm hoping this is best effort at getting things launched again. What I wanted to do is put out just a quick clip on a recent book that I read, Project Zero Trust. This is by George Finney, and really this was something that sat on my bookshelf for far too long before getting into it. It's a really quick read. I read it in a single flight, and it is definitely something I recommend to just about everyone in the cybersecurity space. With the reason being, we've had that recent executive order come out back in May 2021 and improving the nation's cybersecurity, really pushing zero trust to the forefront of the conversation. And I know there's a lot of FUD in the space, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And, it's buzzword bingo. You get all the cliche sayings and jokes whenever someone talks about zero trust. But when you get past all of that, there's a lot of really solid principles and strategies that just about any organization would benefit from in looking at. What I thought was really interesting about this book is it's not just a dry textbook that you're reading pure theory behind zero trust. It's written as essentially a fable, a fictional story. And at the end of each chapter, there is a section of key takeaways. So you do get to reinforce some of the lessons you should have learned throughout the storytelling. If anyone has read any of the Patrick Lencioni books, it's very similar to that. And I mean that as one of the biggest compliments I could give a book. I love those books. And so really, when you get into this, the book has a handful of main goals. The first one is really understanding the 5-step methodology that John Kindervag came up with for implementing zero trust. From there, you have to learn the 4 design principles behind zero trust. Then you have to learn how to properly align the strategy with the business. Because at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want from a security perspective, but you're not going to be there long if you can't make it make sense for the rest of the business. And then you're going to learn how to limit the blast radius of a breach. So kind of accepting that things are going to happen. And when they happen, let's minimize the amount of damage any one incident can cause. Then we're going to talk about how to address some of the common myths and pitfalls you hear around zero trust. And then finally, the book closes out with implementing zero trust in a cloud computing environment. And it's funny that that still needs to be called out as its own section or topic, but it is something many organizations are starting to move towards for the first time, or maybe revisiting. And there are some different aspects there versus more traditional on-premise environment. So with that, some of the key takeaways I had from the book outside of the key takeaway sections in there were a couple quotes. So the first one, the 4 design principles. Number 1, focus on the business outcomes. Number 2, design from the inside out. Number 3 was determine who and what needs access. And then number 4 is inspecting and logging all traffic. You follow those 4 principles, you're going to be able to design zero trust controls around any given business process. The implementation steps are really, you have to first define a protect surface is the terminology they use. So that's a specific process you're going to try and bring these principles to. From there, you need to map all of the transaction flows. Who is doing what, where, when, why, and how. From there, you architect the actual zero trust environment. So you're putting those security controls in place. You're then creating the policies to support those configurations you're rolling out, and then you're going to monitor and maintain the environment. All right, so those are the implementation steps. When you actually look at how do we go about doing this in our environment, first, you're going to pick some of these, what they're referred to as learning protect surfaces. These are non-mission critical processes. It's going to be okay if you make some mistakes and cause some interruptions because you're still learning how to do this. So you don't want to start with the biggest and most significant system. Start with something that is important enough to receive this attention, but can handle some downtime. Then from there, you're going to move on to some practice protect surfaces. So, again, we're looking to implement things here in a staggered approach. After you've got your legs under you a little bit, now you're going to go after what is commonly referred to as the crown jewels, or those business critical processes. Then you're going to go to the secondary, what's next most important, and then tertiary. Again, so we work our way up. We finally get to a comfortable place with the process. go after those real critical segments, processes, and then start working backwards in severity. Some of the other things that I thought were interesting in the book was, I keep mentioning business process aligned to the business. There's NIST special publication out there around zero trust architecture. But the book calls out there's nothing in that guidance document around aligning the zero trust design with the business. So again, we can't do security in a vacuum. We in security only have a job because of the business, and we need to make sure that we're supporting that in everything that we do. I also thought it was interesting that there's a few points throughout this book where they're talking about people aren't the weakest link, and that's something is probably I'll save that for another time. But I thought that was really important, that people really are the only link to the systems. And again, that's why security has a job, is to enable these people to do their job in a secure way. And so you want to make sure that we are doing this appropriately. And with that, I just want to close out with one final quote from the book here. Our secret motto in security is people are the weakest link. If we believe this, we're setting ourselves up for failure. First, because the statement is wrong. And second, because of the way it changes the way we act. People are the largest attack surface in our organizations. It's more accurate to say people are the only link in the chain when it comes to security. And with that, I think it's a really great way to really look at everything we're doing here and start to evaluate how can we bring some of this responsibility for security back into the security department by building more resilient systems. And I really believe the zero trust approach, zero trust network architecture, et cetera, is the way to do that. We can stop making it so that a single credential compromise brings the whole house down. Again, limit the blast radius. If a single user falls for a phishing email, we all know they're going to year over year. That's the number one thing. We need to accept that fact and build the systems to be ready for that and make sure that when that happens, that's a minor incident and not business ending for you. So with that, I'm going to link to the book. I'll link to the little book review that I wrote up, blog post. And in there, there's a bunch of further suggested readings. The book itself, again, has a much more extensive list of further reading. I pulled out just a handful of things that I thought were definitely worthwhile reading. But again, I highly recommend this book, Project Zero Trust by George Finney. And hopefully this is me getting back onto a regular schedule here. Thanks. Bye.